What's going on? It's the real Jonathan Smith show here on Indies Sports Tickets. And oh my gosh, I hope, I really hope that you stayed up last night and watched like the first 5 minutes of that Mavs and Timberwolves game. It was almost said it was the only sporting event of the night on. Caitlin Clark also played last night. We're going to talk about her here in a little bit, but Luka Doncic last night. I have many words to describe it. I almost said that I was speechless in the moment. I was, and because he came out and he hits his first three shots. You know, he hits a little floater. Well, I guess it was a goaltending from Rudy Gobert, and then he comes back down and he hits a 30-footer. And then he comes back down and he hits another 30-footer, and he's got 8 points in the first 2 minutes and 45 seconds. It was incredible. And if you listened to my show yesterday from 10 to noon, I warned you. I warned you about Luka Doncic and what he was capable of. I brought up the stat how he still is the all-time leading playoff scorer following a loss. And I mean, he's one of the best players in the world. He's one of the two best players in the world. It's Luka Doncic or it's Nikola Jokic. And with that being said, in any big game, I don't know how you take anyone in the league today that isn't named Luka Doncic. This is not the first time that we've seen Luka go on the road in I wouldn't call it a must-win game, but in a big-time elimination game for the opponent and just snatch the opposing team's soul on the road in an elimination game. 2 years ago, Game 7 on the road against the Phoenix Suns, a team that expected to make the finals that year because if you remember, the Phoenix Suns made it to the finals and lost in 2021. And so they bring everybody back in 2022 and they're like we should go to the finals again this year. I believe that they were the 1 seed that year as well. And that was the expectation. And then so they play the Mavericks in the second round in a Game 7 with an opportunity to go to the conference finals on the line. Luka goes in there, scores 35 points, pulls down 10 rebounds, dishes out 4 assists, shot 63% from the field and 55% from behind the three-point line in that game. Like, that's what he did. He came out in the first quarter and he scored 12 points and then 15 in the second, 27 points in the first half. This was 2 years ago. This wasn't last night. I'm going to get to last night here in a second. But he was extremely dominant 2 years ago. And I'm not at all surprised by what he did last night. He was dominant, doesn't even feel like the right word. He was unconscious. Maybe that's it, because he was nothing short of spectacular. And he is, I think, everything that we want stars to be in the NBA. He's competitive. He's got that killer instinct. As people like to say, you know, he's hit a lot of checkpoints. Like, the dude's only 24, which is absurd, right? And we like to see superstars figure things out quickly, right? When he was 22, he makes the Western Conference Finals. And now 2 years later, 24 years old, like, he has a legitimate chance to win a title this year because this Dallas Mavericks team is that good. And we saw a large part of it last night. Last night felt like the first game that the Mavericks actually played a complete game. Okay, like, the role players hit shots. Kyrie and Luka both scored the basketball well. And obviously Luka is the headliner after winning MVP of the Western Conference Finals. He scored 20 points in the first quarter last night. 20 points. 1 quarter in Game 5 on the road where the other team is playing for their lives. And he comes out on the road in an elimination game and scores 20 points. The Timberwolves scored 19 points in the first quarter. Luka outscored the Timberwolves by himself in the first quarter last night. He set the tone immediately. And that tone was, bye-bye, Minnesota. You guys can't hang with us. You guys simply aren't good enough to even be in the same room as us. Luka comes out, finishes the game with 36 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists on 64% shooting from the field and 60% shooting from three. It was an absolute masterclass. Right? And when I think about superstars and what we expect from them, like this is it. Like, we want superstars especially in basketball games, but in in football and in baseball games as well. Like, we want the superstars to come out and assert themselves early and be dominant and rise to the occasion. And that is what Luka Doncic did last night. People have compared Anthony Edwards to Michael Jordan the entire year and definitely throughout this playoff run. And I get a lot of it is they're just really similar. They're both, 6'5, 6'6. They're both hyper athletic, all that kind of stuff. They're both very charismatic, right? And like that's kind of been the comparison. But how can you not watch that game last night and Luka not remind you of Michael Jordan? Okay, because when people discuss Michael Jordan, obviously we talk about the titles. If you don't like Michael Jordan, you talk about the gambling and you talk about the Wizard years. But something that everybody mentions, whether you like him or you don't like Michael Jordan, is the quote unquote killer instinct. That thing that he had where he would come out and just snatch the other team's soul in big games. And that's what Luka did last night. Luka came out and he had that killer instinct to stomp out any sort of life that the Timberwolves had before the game even really got going. No, I didn't see Michael Jordan. At least I didn't see peak Michael Jordan. I remember him playing with the Wizards, but that's the thing that people preach about him, his will to win and his ability to just grab a game and take it like it's his. Like that is just such a common talking point when we talk about Michael Jordan. And what we saw Luka Doncic do last night was that he grabbed the game from the jump and he claimed it as his, and they didn't relinquish the lead once. They were up by almost 40 points at one point because of Luka and his aggressiveness coming out early, right? Comes out in the first quarter, scores 20 points, and then in the second quarter, he starts to slow down a little bit. He sat on the bench for a little bit longer in the second quarter because that's just how the Mavs do their rotations. And when he went to the bench, Kyrie Irving was like, great, my turn now. And Kyrie, a guy who in that Oklahoma City series really paced himself, didn't do much in the first half, and then would really turn it on in the second half. Kyrie was much more aggressive throughout this series against Minnesota because Dallas needed him to. And they needed him to step up in the second quarter, and he did that. He didn't miss a shot. Kyrie Irving, a guy who has been controversial to say the least. He's been awesome this year for the Mavs, and the Mavs were under a lot of scrutiny when they gave Kyrie Irving a bunch of money by everyone, including me. I thought it was a mistake. I remember it happened, and being a Mavs fan, all my buddies are calling me, and they're like, "Hey, man, like, what do you think?" And I'm like, the potential is clearly there, but I have no faith whatsoever that the Mavericks reach that potential because Kyrie Irving is he's a roller coaster of emotions. He's up and down. Usually, not this year. He's been very steady, and that's to his credit. That's to the Mavericks organization. That's credit to them as well. And we've seen it throughout these playoffs. He goes 5 of 5 in the second quarter, scores 13 points. Okay, like Luke is going to steal the headlines because he was awesome. But Kyrie was great in the series. He was also great last night. He also scored 36 points on 52% shooting from the floor and 40% from three. That means that Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving combined to score 72 points on 57% shooting from the floor. I said yesterday that a large reason why the Timberwolves won game 4 was because both Luka and Kyrie shot under 35% from the floor, and that wasn't going to happen again. And it didn't. Okay, like those guys self-corrected in a huge way. 72 points between the two of them on 57% shooting from the floor. That's incredible. I don't care who you are. You can be the Showtime Lakers. You could be one of those great Celtic teams from, the late 80s. You can be the Bad Boy Pistons. You can be a peak Michael Jordan team, whatever. Like, take whatever team you want. When two guys combine to score 72 points against you, and they shoot the ball that efficiently from the floor, you're not beating them. I don't care who you are. You aren't beating anyone when two guys combine for that point total on that shooting efficiency. Luka was the best player in the series, and Kyrie Irving was the second best player in the series. And that series, Minnesota and Dallas, felt very similar to Boston and Indiana in a lot of ways. And in this regard as well, when we look at the Boston and Indiana series, Large part of why Boston swept Indiana is because Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown were the two best players in every single game in that series. As good as, the Pacers played, as good a job as they did of hanging tough and just kind of grinding through it and staying in there, like Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown were the two best players. And when we look at this Minnesota and Dallas series, it's the exact same thing. Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving were the best two players in every game except for one. And that was game 4. And that was the game that the Timberwolves won. Okay, that's it. That's the only game that they were able to win. If you want to win in the conference finals, you better have at least one dude that can go get it whenever he wants. And if you have two, it makes it all the easier. Stars and experience win in the conference finals. Okay, and we saw both of these in the conference finals this year. Okay, the Mavs, who have two superstars and have been there before, they won. They were there 2 years ago. The Celtics, who have two superstars and have been in the Eastern Conference Finals 6 out of the last 8 years and made it to the NBA Finals 3 years ago. Like, that's why they won. 2 stars, and they've been there before, right? And the legend of Luka just continues to grow. He needs a better nickname. This is something I've talked about a little bit with Dan Dockich on his show from noon to 3, which you should download that Indie Sports Ticket app and listen to him. You can find it on the Google Play Store or on the App Store. Here's Luka Doncic's resume, because it's incredible for someone who's only 25 years old. When Luka was 16, he debuted in the second best league in the world in Spain, playing for Real Madrid. 2019, or excuse me, at the age of 19, my fault. At the age of 19, Luka Doncic wins the MVP in the second best league in the world, and he wins a title in the second best league in the world. And then 2020 comes around. That's his rookie year, and he wins NBA Rookie of the Year. And then 2021, he's selected to first team All NBA and averaged 42 points a game, and he had just an outstanding series against the Clippers that year in the playoffs. And then 2022, he's once again named to first team All NBA, and he averaged 36, 8, and 10 that year in the playoffs. That's absurd. 2023, once again named to first team All NBA, makes the conference finals, averaged 32, 10, and 6 in the playoffs that year. Last year, when he's 24 years old, first team All NBA, averaged 32 points a game in the regular season. Just another really good year from him. Then 2020, and then this year when he turns 25, first team All NBA, averaged 34 points a game in the regular season, which earned him the scoring title this year. Wins the Western Conference Finals, is selected as the Western Conference Finals MVP, and now has a legitimate chance to add NBA champion and NBA Finals MVP to his resume at the ripe young age of 25 years old. I mean, it's incredible. There's really no other way to describe Luka and the Mavericks in this run, and just how out of the blue it is, because this team wasn't very good before the trade deadline. And it feels almost kind of like baseball, right? Like there'll be a team that's, a little bit above 500, they feel like they have a good chance at making the playoffs. And then at the trade deadline, they'll trade away some prospects in the minor leagues, and they'll go pick up a dominant left-handed guy to come out of the bullpen and a dominant right-handed guy to come out of the bullpen. And you look up, and all of a sudden, they win like 65% of their games after the trade deadline because they added 2 great guys out of the bullpen. And Dallas has done something really similar here, where at the trade deadline, they took some future draft picks, and they go out in Grant Williams, and they go out and they trade for PJ Washington, who's been a starter and has been instrumental in getting the Mavericks to the finals. He's a guy who can guard the opposing team's best player, and he's a good shooter who can knock down open shots, also has the ability to put the ball on the floor and finish at the rim. They added him, and they added Daniel Gafford, right? Their starting center, who defensively defends the rim like I think we all expect and want for Miles Turner too. And those 2 guys, along with the emergence of a rookie, 20-year-old Derek Lively, like those 3 dudes all added this season have played huge roles. And that's not normal. Like usually you have to give guys time to gel and figure out how to play together. But that just hasn't been needed for this team. Like those three guys have all been slotted in perfectly, and they have played big time roles in the Mavericks making it this far. The NBA Finals should be great. I, I'm very I'm we'll see how I preview the finals. I don't think I'm gonna do a ton on it today because the Mavs were awesome and there's other stories that I really want to get to, but they don't start till next Thursday. But this year's NBA Finals are going to be nothing short of absolutely insane. Shout out to my boy Thomas, Otter Creek's kid. Cannot wait to have Otter Creek and Thomas in studio with Dan and I at some point, hopefully within the next couple weeks. That's going to be a lot of fun. They get to do that because of Joseph Newgarden. So congrats to them. When we come back in 4 minutes, Fun List Friday. I've got two lists today that I can't wait to do. This first Fun List Friday is in honor of Luka making it to his first NBA Finals. I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. I've got that list for you coming back here in about 4 minutes.
Days at 11 a.m. This is Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 a.m., 99.5 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app. Welcome. Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket? As we continue to talk about the Luka masterclass last night, I do this segment sometimes on Fridays. I need to do it more just because it's fun. I always enjoy just working through the different ideas that I have. And it's a segment so nice, I'm actually going to do it twice today. Funless Friday. And I was thinking, how can I not honor, but how can I continue to talk about this crazy Luka Game 5 that we had last night, but not just specifically talk about the game? And so I present to you Funless Friday, the best chubby white athletes of all time. Maybe not of all time. If you have any recommendations, feel free to drop them in the YouTube chat. You can also tweet at me on Twitter at _ Jonathan Smith. You can also tweet at the station as well at Ticket1430, and I should see all of them if you do one of those three things. So these are the best chubby white athletes of all time. When I sat down and I was working through this, I was like, would these athletes potentially drink a cold beer after a game like Luka did last night? I don't know if you guys saw that video, but he's in the hallway talking to his dad about, the game or whatever. And Michael Finley, the assistant general manager of the Mavs, had to take the beer out of Luka Doncic's hands, which is incredible. And I think that is also just a cultural thing, right? Because when they drink, they drink all the time overseas. When you're 16, you can drink beer and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's partially a cultural thing, but it's still really funny. The fact that Luka goes out, has an absolute masterclass, and he's like, hey, let me crack a cold one here with Pops. It was great. So in honor of Luka making it to his first NBA Finals, and also in honor of the two best basketball players in the world being chubby white dudes, I figured I'd honor all of the great white chubby athletes out there, starting with Nikola Jokic, 6'11", 284 pounds, the best basketball player in the world. You're going to turn on your TVs today, or maybe not. I don't know what all you watch, but if you watch ESPN or FS1 or any of these, big time sports talk shows, there will undoubtedly be a segment on, is Luka Doncic the best player in the world? I'm going to talk about that probably in the next segment or at some point today. But as of right now, Nikola Jokic is still the best player in the world. Let's not overreact to one great game. So starting off the best chubby white athletes of all time list, Nikola Jokic. Luka Doncic also on this list. Has to be. If we're doing the list because of him, then he has to be on the list. Staying in the world of basketball, I have Minnesota Timberwolves Kevin Love, 6'8", 251 pounds. I don't know if you remember Kevin Love coming out of UCLA, but he comes into the league and he's got a bit of a belly, and he was a really good player coming out of Minnesota, right? There's a reason why LeBron wanted him to come to Cleveland to play with him and Kyrie, right? Kevin, but he was a little hefty. He still is, right? He's got this gray beard now, and he's a little overweight. So Kevin Love makes the list of best chubby white athletes of all time. Next, Bryant Reeves, also known as Big Country, 7 feet tall, 275 pounds, out of Fort Smith, Arkansas. Didn't realize that as well. I believe he played in the NBA for 5 or 6 seasons after coming out of Oklahoma State. He's got to be on the list, right? If you've heard Shaquille O'Neal talk about Big Country, then that this dude could hoop. Okay, he tormented Shaq during Shaq's prime as well. So Bryant Reeves, Big Country, has to make the list of best chubby white athletes of all time. Mehmet Okur, that is maybe a name you don't know. Played in the league for 8 or 9 years. The NBA, to be more specific, 6'11", 249 pounds, out of Turkey. So he's got to be on that list. Otter Creek is saying Oliver Miller. Got to be honest, he didn't pop. Oh, geez. Biggin. That's a big dude. But he is not white, and that's part of the list. You got to be white to make the best chubby white athletes of all time. John Daly has to be on this list. John Daly, 1,000%, has to be on the list of best chubby white athletes of all time. I believe he's won a single major. I think that's it. But I think he perfectly resembles what I wanted this list to be. smoking cigarettes while he's playing, drinking beer, just having an absolute blast. John Daly, 1,000% has to be on this list of best chubby white athletes of all time. He's still playing somehow. I would love to walk the 18 holes with John Daly sometime and just like not even talk to him. I just want to listen to how out of breath he gets, especially on day 4, because like walking a full 18 holes, like it's not an easy task. It's not an easy task. So John Daly, 5'11", 215 pounds, makes the list for best chubby white athletes of all time. John Crook, I have on the list, played first base for the Phillies, 5'10", 200 pounds. He has the famous quote where I guess he was on a date with some woman and she was like, "I thought you were an athlete." And his response is, "I'm not an athlete. I'm a baseball player." Especially for him because he played first base. If he played center field or really any of the outfield spots or middle infield, then he wouldn't be able to say that because you do have to be somewhat of an athlete to play those positions. And I'm not just saying that because that's where I played. But, John Crook has to be on the list. Okay. I put Travis Kelce on the list. And if someone wanted to veto this, someone wanted to veto Travis Kelce being on the list of the best chubby white athletes of all time, I would understand it. But I also want to remind people of the photo of him and Taylor Swift, where he's got pretty big love handles. Like, I mean, just oozing over his waist. So I put Travis Kelce on the list. If you wanted to push back and say, no, Travis Kelce does not belong on this list, then I would say, you know what, that's fine. Because during the season, he does look a little more toned. But so right now, he's got a bit of a belly. You could also put a lot of offensive linemen on this list, but I don't know. They're supposed to be overweight. So I don't know. I've also got every Major League Baseball player from the MLB's inception all the way up to April 15th, 1947, which is when they started to integrate the league. I believe that's the day that Jackie Robinson made his debut. That grabs a lot of guys like Babe Ruth, and then you can just list off a slew of guys who were overweight and really good athletes. So every Major League Baseball player from its inception to April 15th of 1947. The last guy I've got on the list, this guy passed away not that long ago. Jared Lorenzen, also known as the Hefty Lefty, played quarterback in the NFL for 2 years for the New York Giants, played his college football at the University of Kentucky. 6'4", 285 pounds, slinging the rock all over the gridiron. Okay, Jared Lorenzen was not a small human being. He died of a heart attack, I believe, not like a couple years ago, if I remember correctly. So Jared Lorenzen, final guy here on the list for Fun List Friday, best chubby white athletes of all time. Once again, to run through the list for you, Jokic at 6'11", 284, Luka Doncic at 6'7", 230, Minnesota Timberwolves, Kevin Love, 6'8", 251, Big Country, Bryant Reeves, 7 foot, 275, Mehmet Okur, 6'11", 249, John Daly, the perfect guy for this list, 5'11", 215, every Major League Baseball player from its inception to April 15th of 1947, Travis Kelce at 6'5", 250, and then Jared Lorenzen, the Hefty Lefty at 6'4", 285. And while I'm out here but recognizing the chubby white athletes of the world, if you look at the WNBA, they are not happy with Caitlin Clark, in part because she's white, but this is not a political show, so I'm not going to get into that too much. The segue was too easy there. I had to do it. Caitlin Clark, once again, played well last night, and I keep saying that the turnovers will go away. And I still believe that. I just didn't think – I'm still surprised that, like, they're still here, though. Like, I've seen people say this, and I have also said this, that some of the turnovers that Caitlin Clark has is her teammates not being ready for the ball or just not expecting for her to make the passes that she makes. And look, that is, I think, 1,000% a true statement. But at some point, like, you have to know who your teammates are. Like, you do. Like, it's at some point you have to recognize that, okay, this player has bad hands. Like, they aren't going to catch the ball. Like when I watch the Timberwolves play, my reaction is pretty similar every time that Rudy Gobert catches the ball. I'm like genuinely surprised. Okay, like watching Rudy Gobert play basketball is just one of the most confusing experiences that someone can have because he has like the offensive capability of a drunk toddler trying to walk backwards. But then on defense, he just turns into one of the greatest rim protectors of all time. Rudy Gobert is a first ballot Hall of Famer. That is what 4 Defensive Player of the Year awards will do for you. But like when you watch him on offense, it's very apparent that he has terrible hands. And like my thing is like, is Caitlin Clark not going to learn this about some of her teammates? Like there are some girls on this team for whatever reason that are never ready for the passes that Caitlin Clark makes, and when they are ready, they just don't catch it. And that's how not where all of her turnovers come from, but that's where some of them do come from. And at some point, like she has to figure that out. That some of these girls just don't have the ability to catch the ball for whatever reason. And so, like, that is an adjustment that she's going to have to make at some point. And hopefully it's coming because, like, it's hard to win games when your point guard is turning the basketball over 7 times. Like, that is an area of Caitlin Clark's game that has to improve. And I'm going to continue to be patient because I do think that she's going to figure that part of her game out. And once she does, she's going to be awesome. Like, she had 20 points last night, 9 assists. I mean, like, the passing is still good. Like, the assist to turnover ratio, it's still positive, but it's not where it should be if you're going to play point guard professionally. And like, so she has to develop in that area. She's shooting the ball well, 3 of 8 from 3 last night, 5 of 5 from the free throw line. And while she continues, to fill up the stat sheet, there's a clip circumnavigating the internet right now where she hits a tough step back 3 against this girl for the Storm that goes by the name of Victoria Vivians. Excuse me. And Clark hits the 3 and she gets she's like running back down the court, running her mouth at this Victoria Vivians girl. And they end up, coming together and, they're nose to nose. And that's, I think, one of the most encouraging things we've seen from Caitlin Clark. Because when you have a target on your back, like Caitlin Clark clearly does, okay, these other WNBA women, they don't like her. And it makes sense. Like, this is just the way that sports work. Okay. The NBA guys didn't like Wembanyama this year, and they tested him consistently, right? Because anytime that somebody comes in with a whole bunch of hype and there's this idea that this new person who's never done, or who's never played basketball on the level that you have succeeded at, it's like, is this person really going to be that good? And you just naturally want to go at them when you're competitive. And that's really what a lot of what we're seeing here. Okay. And I just love that, Caitlin Clark has this target on her back and she's just not afraid to go at people, man. Like, she hits this tough 3. It's just running her mouth the whole way back down the court. And I admire, I appreciate, and I think it's a good sign that Caitlin Clark has really embraced this target that she has on her back. And she's done it not only on the court, like she did last night, she's done it in interviews where she's just kind of acknowledged it of like, yeah, like, I'm new, people don't really like me for whatever reason, but that's whatever. Like, I'm still going to be myself and who I am. And that is a really important thing for young athletes that are as highly regarded as Caitlin Clark is. Because look, if she came into the league and she folded under the pressure and folded under the idea that people didn't like her, well, first of all, she wouldn't be in this position if that's just how she operated, because that's extremely soft. And look, if you play professional sports at any level, if you play professional sports in any league, like, you have to have something in you that is ultra competitive, and you have to have something in you that doesn't allow you to back down from other people. And Caitlin Clark undoubtedly has that. She has handled everything that's been thrown at her so far she's handled it really well, right? Like, there's really no other way to put it. And she's handling it well. Caleb Williams is about to come under the same scrutiny. He already has. The Bears have been elected for Hard Knocks this year. I'm interested to see how that goes. I'm actually going to talk about that a little bit when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Head to the Mower Shop during the Toro Spring Sales Event for incredible savings on select Toro zero-turn mowers. Get up to $500 on select Time Cutter and Titan zero turns, or choose one of the amazing financing offers. When it comes to taking care of your acreage, there's nothing like the My Ride suspension that lets you float above the bumps and rough terrain. Visit the Mower Shop today for the best sales, service, and expert advice around. 126 and State Road 37, next to Don Hines Ford. Toro. Count on it.
Is reviewing life insurance on your to-do list? Now's the perfect time to add it. A friend recently told me that securing life insurance sooner rather than later can help you lock in lower rates for years to come. So I bumped this up on my list and got it done. I called SelectQuote and couldn't believe how easy and affordable life insurance is. I'm 40 and got a $500,000 policy for $16 a month. My husband's also 40 and his $500,000 policy was only $18 a month. Plus, with SelectQuote's same-day coverage, there was no medical exam required, and we were covered by the time we hung up. Knowing I have this checked off my list feels amazing, but the peace of mind knowing my family is protected feels even better.
Call SelectQuote at 1-800-778-9922. That's 1-800-778-9922. Or go to SelectQuote.com to get your free quote today. That's 1-800-778-9922. Details on example rate at SelectQuote.com.
Tired of those pesky mosquitoes ruining your outdoor fun? Dan Dockage here. Let me tell you about my experience with Mosquito Joe. I had the backyard done, and it does work. Mosquito Joe provides the best in mosquito, tick, spider, and flea control treatment for both residential and commercial customers. Outfitted in the latest gear, technology, and expertise, Mosquito Joe technicians get the job done quickly, thoroughly, and professionally. Mosquito Joe worked for me, and I know it'll work for you too. So get your yard ready for spring and summer. Call 1-855-275-2563 or visit mosquitojoe.com. That's 1-855-275-2563 or visit mosquitojoe.com to get your yard protected for spring. Don't let mosquitoes, ticks, spiders, and fleas ruin your outdoor experience. Take back your yard with Mosquito Joe. Trust me, with Mosquito Joe, you'll be enjoying your outdoor oasis in no time. That's 855-275-2563 or mosquitojoe.com.
Okay, I'm ready to record my jewelry store's new radio spot. I got a great script that really goes after Diamonds Direct and how they're nothing special and how we can match their price. Great stuff.
Oh, great. We have this new technology that bleeps out any false claims, so it saves us time with editing. So you can start anytime.
Okay, here goes. When you visit our jewelry store, we'll guarantee direct. Our diamonds come straight. We have cutters, and hey, what the?
The hard truth is that other jewelry stores simply can't do what Diamonds Direct can. Diamonds Direct has special relationships with De Beers, international connections, and virtually unlimited buying power. The result is true direct importer pricing, exceptional quality, and up to 30 times the diamond selection you find at other stores.
I can't believe this thing won't let me say.
Diamonds Direct. Your love, our passion. Get more truth at diamondsdirect.com, official jeweler of the Indianapolis Colts.
The best takes, stories, and entertainment. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket? Oh, man, Mavs thump the Wolves last night. That is, the big storyline coming into today. Also, not a thing people are talking about majorly, but I did want to touch on it. The Bears have been the team selected for Hard Knocks this year, which is a really interesting thing. And I'll be honest, I've never sat down and intensely watched Hard Knocks. I'll turn on an episode here and there, kind of listen to it run in the background. I might actually sit down and legitimately watch it this year. I'm very interested to see how they portray Caleb Williams. There are obviously and clearly some negative connotations about Caleb Williams. He's not a team guy, all of those different types of things. And Hard Knocks is very much a documentary. It's not a biography. It doesn't have to be 1,000% accurate. Okay, so HBO is going to have the power to pick and choose clips to portray Caleb Williams however they want. Like, if they want to make Caleb Williams look like a good team guy, then they can do that. If they don't want to do that, then they can make him look terrible. Like they really have the option. So it's going to be really interesting to kind of see how they try to portray Caleb Williams throughout that process. So I'm intrigued by it. Something else that I'm intrigued by is how are we going to look back at the 2020s in the NBA? When we look through, the history of really any sport, every decade is defined by a player or two. Okay, the NBA decades are clearly defined by players. The 80s were about Magic Johnson and Larry Bird, right? Like that's what they were about. And when we look at, when we look at the 90s, they're about Michael Jordan, right? That is very much the Michael Jordan era. And when we look at, the 2000s, it was the Duncan and Kobe era. And when we look at the 2010s, like those were the LeBron James and Steph Curry era. And with the way that the 2020s are going, like this new decade of basketball, it's very different. Okay, like if Luka wins a title this year, which is very much on the table, and if Jokic wins another title before 2030, like is this going to be the first decade defined by non-American international players? Because it's not just Luka and Jokic. Victor Wembanyama, last year's #1 overall pick, the best basketball prospect we've seen since LeBron James, he's coming along too. Okay, he's the first unanimous Rookie of the Year since LeBron James. He almost won and probably should have won Defensive Player of the Year. Like we could look up 3 years from now, and I didn't even mention Giannis, who's also not from America. He won a title in 2020. Like these 3 or 4 players could very easily be the headliners of this decade. And for the first time in the history of the NBA, a decade won't be dominated by American players. And in all honesty, I kind of like it. Okay, like international players just play a much more appealing, team-oriented style of basketball. They understand that it's about the team and not the individual, which is really refreshing. Like the ultimate secret to winning basketball games, it's not shooting. It's not, shooting or the way that you dribble or the way that you play defense. It's about getting guys to sacrifice for the betterment of the team. Like that's how you win championships in any sport. You have to have players that are great buy into their roles and sacrifice other things for the betterment of the team. And I think international guys do that really well. And American guys don't. Like in America, the way we play basketball and do a lot of other things, it's very much about the individual. And until that changes, I think we're going to continue to see these international players run laps around American players. And look, there are people, it's already happened, that are going to overreact to last night's game in this Dallas Mavericks run. Those people that are going to overreact, they are going to crown Luka as the best player on the planet. It's already happened. They had the topic on ESPN this morning on Get Up. Whoever does the morning show for CBS Radio, I was listening on my way in. They did the topic. Jason Timpf, who works for The Volume, he did the topic on his podcast last night. And the list is going to continue to grow. This is going to be a topic today, Monday, and throughout the NBA Finals. And look, I'm telling you right now, Luka Doncic is not the best player in the world. It is still Nikola Jokic. Not that much has changed over the past, 3 weeks or whatever it is. Okay. And when we have the best player in the world debate, we oftentimes fall prisoner to the moment. Okay. Like after last year, after, the Nuggets won the whole thing last year, Jokic was immediately crowned as the best player in the world because he won the title. Right. And if Luka wins it this year, then he's definitely going to be given the title or the belts. That's what I say. The belts of the best player on the planet by the majority of people. I'm not giving it to him. Like I said, like I'm still going to keep it with Jokic. When it comes to debates like this, I treat them very much like parties. I would rather show up to a party 15 minutes late than 15 minutes early or right on time. Okay. Like I want to show up a little bit later than everybody else. That's just kind of the way that I do things like that. And when I think we have these conversations, it's much easier to have them when we look back and see the full picture. And we're actually able to decide who the best player on the planet was in that moment in time, right? Because in the moment, it's all about, who's the finals MVP, who won the regular season MVP. Like those are the questions that we pose. And it feels like a lot of times when we have this question of who's the best player in the world, we just look for the guy that was given the most recent and shiniest trophy, and then we just pick that guy as the best player in the world. And that player oftentimes is given the title of best player on the planet, unless there's already currently a player in the league that is clearly transcendent, a guy like Michael Jordan or LeBron James. Right? It's like, unless there's a guy like that present, we just tend to pass the title out to whoever most recently won a title. And back to kind of my main point here of international players are very much here to stay, but in a whole new way, right? Like international players have been a part of the league for a long time. Like, I think the first guy that comes to mind for many of us would be a guy like Tony Kukoc, right? Who played for the Bulls. And there's, the famous 1992 Dream Team story where Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan were arguing over who was going to guard him. But as good as Tony Kukoc was, he was very different from Nikola Jokic and Luka Doncic. Like, before really, Giannis, Luka, and Jokic, international players were part of the league, but they weren't winning championships as the best player on their team. Okay, they were mainly role players. But now, the talent overseas and really throughout the entire world has emerged in an entirely new way, and they are so much more fun to watch. Like, I'm telling you right now that the 2020s will be known as the beginning, the genesis of the international era of the NBA because of Luka, Jokic, Giannis, and Victor Wembanyama. Like, up until this year, with the emergence of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, well, not even him, because he's not from America either. He's from Canada. Like, the 5 best players in the world, unless you want to argue for Jason Tatum, aren't from America. And this is an unprecedented thing. Like, this is something that hasn't been a trend in the NBA for a really long time. And like I said, I think I kind of like it this way. I like it when the best player on the team is willing to be unselfish and give the ball up and have good teammates and is willing to buy into whatever the coach is selling. It's a really nice change of pace and sacrifices. Important. I had a tweet yesterday that got a little bit of play, not a ton of play, about, John Buzzard tweeted at me and he said that he was waiting on his kids to finish up the movie Ghostbusters before he could watch the Mavs and the Timberwolves game. And so much respect for Buzzard, because my dad never would have happened. There's no way. I'll never forget being a kid and, we're sitting down watching, like Veggie Tales or Phineas and Ferb or something. And, I'm like 5 and my older brother's 6 and my younger sister's, 4 or whatever. And, we're all peacefully watching something. And my dad, he would come in the room and he would just grab the remote. That's not what would happen. He wouldn't grab it. He would say, quote, "Who has the remote?" And then, me or my brother would be like, "We have it," because we were the older ones. We weren't going to share the remote with our younger sister. Come on now. What 5 and 6-year-olds do that? Not me. And he'd be like, "Okay, great. Give me the remote." We're like, "Oh, but Dad, we're watching Phineas and Ferb and it's, blah, 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 or whatever." And my dad would be like, "I don't care. It's my remote. It's my TV. I pay the cable bill. I bought that TV. I'm watching what I want to watch." Okay. And then be like, "Oh, but Dad, that's not fair." Right. Because that is a very common phrase that, as I've gotten older, doesn't matter because life isn't fair. And that's just the way the cookie crumbles. So my dad would look at us and he'd be like, "Well, life's not fair." And then he would follow it up with, "Jonathan, Caleb, that's my older brother. When you guys are dad and you have kids of your own, you'll be able to do the exact same thing." Right? And so he'd take the remote and he'd sit down and whatever he wanted to watch, didn't matter what it was. Could have been an old movie, could have been a sporting event, didn't matter. We were watching that thing. That is just the way that it always works. So if you are the type of father that allows your kids to finish watching movies and things before you take over the TV, much respect to you. Because I can tell you right now, I will not be doing that. I will be like, hey, kids, give me the remote, my TV. I'm watching what I want to watch. And then I can be like, it's for work. Because that is the best part about this job. It really is. My lovely wife, Amelia, she's just the best, an absolute trooper. So we're watching the Man in the High Castle on Amazon Prime. Fantastic show. Was nominated for Emmys and stuff. If you're a history buff or if you enjoy history, especially World War II history, this might be up your alley. We were sitting there. We were watching it last night, and we finished an episode, and it was like 7:40. She looks at me and she goes, "Is there a game on tonight?" And I go, "Yes, it's on at 8:30." She was like, "Oh, so we don't have time to watch the other one." I was like, "We do not." And so, love my wife. She's an absolute trooper. She understands those types of things so well. And yeah, it's just been really kind of funny just watching her deal with how often I watch sports. But anyway, to wrap up the top of the hour, there's another segment of Funless Friday that I wanted to do when I tweeted out what I was talking about today. I did say that I had two lists. And not really upon arriving in Indianapolis, I would say arriving here on Indy Sports Ticket, the best sports radio station in the country, or at least we're going to build it into that. And we're definitely going to be the best media source in Indianapolis. That is already the case. But, I show up and I sit across from Dan Doncic for, 3 hours a day, 15 hours a week. And he talks a lot about the local media and just how terrible they are. And, I was like, okay, I'll be honest, until last night, I hadn't really sat down and went through some of the stuff that's being written by the Blogger Boys of Indiana. And then I did. I sat down last night. I'm scrolling through it all, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. So for another list today on Funless Friday, I have decided that I'm going to do the worst indie Blogger Boy headlines. And I may not be able to get through all of them. And I think that this is going to be a running list. I think that as the year goes on, I'm just going to add to this list of the worst indie Blogger Boy headlines. So first one here, I about fell over when I read this. From Stampede Blue, the headline is, quote, Taekwon Lewis has become a reliable pass rusher. That was written earlier this week. Oh my gosh. Okay. Taekwon Lewis had 4 sacks last year. That's it. That was the most of his career. Taekwon Lewis has suited up in Colts blue for 6 years. He's been in the NFL for 6 years, every single year being spent with the Indianapolis Colts. Over the course of his 6-year career, he has 13 and a half sacks. That is it. Look, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer. I'm not the brightest light bulb in the box. But 13 and a half sacks over the course of 6 years, that's a little over 2 sacks a year. That is not a reliable pass rusher. Wait, no, it is a reliable pass rusher. It is a reliably bad pass rusher. Averaging 2 sacks a year? Come on, Stampede Blue. I get it. It's the offseason still, kind of. There aren't games to write about yet. But we can do something better than Taekwon Lewis has become a reliable pass rusher. Stampede Blue, how about instead of Taekwon Lewis has become a reliable pass rusher, how about instead you do an article where it's a list of all of the underwhelming pass rushers that Chris Ballard has drafted during his time here in Indianapolis. The statement, the headline that Taekwon Lewis has become a reliable pass rusher is absolutely absurd. And, to be totally transparent, I used to write for a similar website that had to do with the Dolphins called the Fanatic. And I didn't want to click on the headline because you get paid for clicks. That's just kind of how it works. And so they're in a way kind of incentivized to put up these horrendous headlines that don't make any sense. And I clicked on it and I'm reading through it. No stats anywhere. It's just a whole bunch of nonsense. And it was just absurd. So Stampede Blue, I don't even know who wrote it. Tyquan Lewis has not become a reliable pass rusher. He's been a reliably bad pass rusher for the last 6 years, and I'm assuming that that's going to continue to be the same thing, and I'm going to assume that he's going to continue to not get reps this year because they went out and they drafted Leatu Latu. Okay, Dan and I, someone wrote something else the other day about how Kwity Paye has become a good pass rusher. If Kwity Paye has become a good pass rusher and Tyquan Lewis is a reliable pass rusher, then why in the world would the Colts have spent the 15th overall pick on an edge rusher? They wouldn't have. This incredibly stupid. I can't. I've got to take a break. When we come back here in about 4.5 minutes, I'm going to continue giving you the worst indie blogger boy headlines.
See website for details. Bills Happen is not a lender and does not make credit decisions. Must be 18 years old. Not available in all states.
Honey, the credit card bill came and we're maxed out.
Great. Maxed out cards, rent is due, bills are piling up. We just need some extra cash to help us get by for a few weeks.
We should do what my brother did. He went to billshappen.com and got $3,000 the next day.
With our bad credit, I don't think so.
Billshappen.com is different. They are one of the largest personal loan networks. They can help people with all credit types get up to $5,000.
I'm sure there's a lot of paperwork.
Nope, my brother said it was easy. He did it right from his phone.
If you have a regular source of income, you can be approved for a loan for up to $5,000 in minutes, and your cash can hit your bank account the next day. Billshappen.com's lenders have millions of dollars to lend, regardless of your credit history.
Great news. I went to billshappen.com, and we will have our money as soon as tomorrow.
Wow, that is fast.
If you need extra cash, go to billshappen.com. That's billshappen.com. Billshappen.com.
Hey everyone, it's Ted from Consumer Cellular, the guy in the orange sweater, and this is your wake-up call. If you're paying too much for wireless service, you don't have to keep having that nightmare. Consumer Cellular has the same fast, reliable coverage as the leading carriers for up to half the cost. So why keep spending more than you have to? Seriously, wake up and call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com.
Savings based on cost of Consumer Cellular single line 1, 5, and 10 gig data plans with unlimited talk and text compared to lowest cost single line postpaid unlimited talk, text, and data plans offered by T-Mobile and Verizon January 2024.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same, but is 95% cheaper? And you can get it online? Go to hims.com/joy. Through HIMS, you'll get a free medical consultation, discreet shipping if prescribed, and the process is 100% online. To start your free online visit, go to hims.com/joy. That's HIMS.com/JOY.
Reason number 52 to choose Diamonds Direct over any other jeweler. Only Diamonds Direct gives you a 110% diamond upgrade guarantee. Let us explain. If you buy a diamond at Diamonds Direct today and decide in the future you want to upgrade to a larger diamond, Diamonds Direct will give you 110% of your original purchase price toward the new stone. For example, let's say you bought her a $5,000 diamond last year, but now she wants to upgrade to a $6,000 diamond. Diamonds Direct will give you $5,500 toward the new one. That's 10% more than you paid the first time. Guaranteed appreciation. Whether that first diamond was $3,000 or $30,000, you get 10% more. Who else does this? And unlike other stores who claim to offer diamond upgrades, at Diamonds Direct, there's no fine print and no minimum purchase requirement. It's 10% more, period. Come and discover real value and buy with confidence. Diamonds Direct. Your love, our passion. Official jeweler of the Indianapolis Colts.
Life is full of moments, from first steps, first loves, moments that make life special. Our life can also bring us difficult and disruptive moments like a cancer diagnosis, which is why the groundbreaking work of Stand Up to Cancer is so vital. They know the problem of cancer won't be solved by one doctor, one lab, or one hospital. It takes collaboration. That's why Stand Up to Cancer brings together top minds from different fields to find new and better treatments so patients can thrive. So when it matters, we can all show up for moments of a lifetime. Please join Stand Up to Cancer and Myrtle Beach to help families get back to where they belong, making new memories for years to come. Please go to standuptocancer.org to see how you can join the mission.
Hello, it's me, the designer jeans in the back of your closet. What happened to us? I used to summer in the Hamptons, and now I'm stuck behind a pair of sweats. Okay, maybe I never really fit you right, but I got a lot more Sunday fun days left in me. So take me to Goodwill, where I can really make a difference.
Your donations to Goodwill create jobs, training programs, and education assistance for people in your community. To find your nearest donation center, go to goodwill.org. Donate stuff. Create jobs. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
This is Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, WXNT, AM, Indianapolis, WZPL, HD2, Greenfield, a Cumulus media station. Download the free app in the Google Play and App Store.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for...
It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket, hour number two here on Indy Sports Ticket. The best media outlet, the best radio station, the best entertainment source in the great city of Indianapolis, really in the great state of Indiana in general, and probably just in the United States in general. We've had just a blast today so far. First hour, talked about how Luka Doncic is an absolute assassin. Okay, that NBA Finals series is going to be awesome. That then led us into the first edition of Funless Friday, where we talked about the best chubby white athletes of all time. Okay, we'll probably wrap around and hit on that one more time. We talked about the 2020s of the NBA, what's going to define that, and that has led us to Caitlin Clark and the Bears on Hard Knocks. And now we're at a really fun time on the show. Funless Friday, part 2, actually. The worst indie Blocker Boy headlines. We've already listed the worst one. And, you know, if I was better at this, I probably would have, built my way up. But no, we just came out and laid the smackdown immediately. From Stampede Blue, they wrote an article that said that Tyquan Lewis had become a reliable pass rusher. The guy who had 4 sacks last year, a guy who's had, in a 6-year career, 13.5 sacks. That's absurd. That is not reliable. That is reliably bad. Okay, so to catch up all of our new listeners, that's where we're at right now. We're talking about Stampede Blue and this just awful article that they wrote. And I don't know if it's the cool thing, the funny thing, whatever you want to go with. That's not the only one that they've written. Also from Stampede Blue. This was written this week. The headline is, Colts offensive line revitalized into one of the NFL's best front fives. No, just no. The offensive line's good, right? But it's not one of the 5 best offensive line units in the NFL. It's not. Okay, and their proof is on this idea, or their defense. I wouldn't call it proof because if it was proof, I wouldn't be able to debunk it like I'm about to, and it wouldn't have made the list. Their defense on the idea that the Colts have a top 5 offensive line in the league is built around this idea that the Colts allowed the 3rd fewest sacks in the NFL last year, which sounds good, right? That is a very logical thing to base the idea upon. But you have to understand, allowing sacks is not just about how good the offensive line is. Okay, sacks also have to do with, does the quarterback maneuver the pocket well? And that was something that I thought Gardner Minshew did a good job last year. But more importantly, how many sacks you allow is also directly dependent upon how long your quarterback holds the football for. Okay, that's one of the biggest things with Justin Fields. Justin Fields held the football on average for 4 seconds on pass plays last year. That's a long time. That was the longest time in the NFL, and he was sacked a lot because of it. Gardner Minshew's time to throw last year, so from the time that he snapped the football, caught it, and released it, was on average 2.73 seconds. That is quick. Okay, that is snap, 3 steps, ball is out. That is extremely fast. And when you're getting rid of the football that quickly, when you're getting rid of the football in less than 3 seconds, the offensive line doesn't have to be great. It doesn't. Okay, when you're getting rid of the football that fast, the offensive line has to be above average. And that's what I think that this Colts offensive line is. Once again, I'm not saying that the Colts offensive line is terrible, because it's not. It's solid. Okay, it's good, but it's not one of the 5 best in the league like these idiots at Stampede Blue are trying to tell you. Okay, once again, Gardner Minshew got rid of the ball in 2.73 seconds on average last year. That's really quick. Okay, and that is allowed by good route running and Shane Steichen's play calling. Okay, like that is what allowed the sack numbers to go down, right? Because if your receivers are running slant routes and 5 yards and ends and really quick hitting pass plays, like you're going to get rid of the ball faster, and that's what the Colts ran. And if you don't believe me that has an impact, go look at the Miami Dolphins, who have one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL, but they have receivers that are extremely fast. They get downfield quickly, right? And so they just come open sooner. Like the plays just develop faster. Tua gets rid of the ball quicker, and he doesn't get hit. That's, it's a common sense thing. So no, Stampede Blue, the Colts offensive line has not been revitalized into one of the NFL's best front 5. From Colts Wire, the Colts, quote, saved a lot, end quote, on Michael Pittman contract extension. First and foremost, this is common sense. Okay, their whole idea is because the Colts extended Michael Pittman early, the market wasn't reset and they didn't have to pay him as much. Right, and like that makes sense. The last elite receiver that gets paid resets the market. So when you pay a player early, it always saves money. Everybody knows this. That is self-explanatory. The other part of this is that even if the Colts had waited to pay Michael Pittman Jr. later, he was never going to reset the market. Okay, he was never going to touch a contract anything close to what Jalen Waddle got. He was never going to touch a contract anything close to what Jamar Chase is going to get. Michael Pittman Jr. was never going to sniff a contract close to what Justin Jefferson is going to get. It didn't matter when the Colts paid Michael Pittman Jr. because he was never going to reset the market. He was going to wind up making around $20 million a year like he is right now because that's what he's worth. And, as much crap that I talk and Dan talks about Ballard and as many mistakes as he makes. To be fair to Chris Ballard, he doesn't overpay players. He doesn't do that. And in his defense, like that is a good thing. He was never going to overpay Michael Pittman Jr. $23 million a year seems like a pretty fair contract. Okay, it makes Michael Pittman a top 20 paid receiver in the league. Is he a top 20 receiver in the league? I don't know. Probably. He's had 2,000-yard receiving seasons in 2 out of the last 3 years. He caught over 100 balls last year. So if you want to make the argument that he's a top 20 receiver in the league, then that's fine. And that's what he got. Okay. By the time the dust settles and all these contracts go out, I had Kevin Potts on my show yesterday. We talked about this for like 25 minutes. And like we discussed this, like his contract is going to end up being where it's supposed to be. Okay. So I don't want to hear the Colts saved a lot of money on Pittman. That's just Chris Ballard propaganda. That's all that is. Okay. From Horseshoe Heroes. This is the 4th article, by the way. From Horseshoe Heroes. The headline is Colts predicted to have a breakout offensive star, and it's not Anthony Richardson. Which is just, okay. You're grasping at straws here, man. Like, come on now. In the article from Horseshoe Heroes. In the article, it claims that Jelani Woods is going to be a breakout player at tight end this season. He didn't play at all last year. Tore his hamstring, missed the entire season, right? Like started with like a strain and then he tore it. I don't know. Something about his hamstring. So he didn't play at all last year. So a guy that we haven't seen football play in a year, coming off of an injury that sounds really sick, that is significant. Okay, like coming off a torn hamstring, like you use your hamstring for everything, to sprint, to jump, to to block. Okay, like he's coming off of an injury that's not easy to come back from. Also, I wouldn't call his rookie season great because that's the only time that we've seen him play. He played 15 games, only started in 2 of them, only caught 25 balls, was only targeted 40 times. And here's the other thing. The Colts have a legitimate stable of tight ends. They have 1 million of tight ends. Kyle Granson, who I love, by the way. I think he's going to be a good player. I think he's going to get most of those targets this year. Kyle Granson was he was the best receiving tight end that the Colts had last year. He was, and I'm expecting him to get, if not all of those snaps, a decent number of those snaps this year, right? He was the 4th leading receiver for the Colts last year in limited opportunity. So I don't know how a guy like Jelani Woods, who didn't play last year, is going to break out when he's splitting reps. Also, why are we betting on a guy to break out when he's coming off of a torn hamstring? You know how hard that is to come back from? It's not easy. It's not an easy thing to bounce back from. And finally, I'm only going with 5 here. And these have all been written recently. As the year goes on, I'm going to add to this list from Horseshoe Heroes. Final one here. The headline is why Colts fans should keep an eye on running back Evan Hull in 2024. Yes. Please educate me on why I should be tuned in to the Colts' 3rd string running back. Seriously, like he's a career backup running back, and they're telling us why he's important. He's not. He's not. Okay? He's the 3rd string running back. He's not going to see the field that often. Okay? In his career, you ready for this? Evan Hull has played in 1 game. That's it. He's touched the ball twice. Okay? He's had 1 rushing attempt in his entire career. And, oh my gosh. He's had 1 rushing attempt in his entire career. It went for 1 yard. He has 1 reception in his entire career, and it went for 6 yards. That is it. That's it. Oh my gosh. The ignorance, the stupidity, the desperation to be relevant is on full display right here. So yes, Colts fans, Evan Hull going to be just a super important part of the offense this year. Okay, he's the 3rd string running back, behind Jonathan Taylor and Trey Sermon. But yeah, he's going to be important. We're really going to need that guy. You know what? Here's why Evan Hull's important. Galaxy brain take coming at you right now. Colts are just loaded with so much talent. Like Evan Hull, oh my gosh. Here's what's going to happen. The Colts are going to find themselves in week 17 once again, battling the Houston Texans for the right to not only make the playoffs, week 18. The Colts are going to find themselves week 18, primetime football against the Houston Texans with an opportunity to win the division at Lucas Oil Stadium. Big game. Season on the line. Shane Steichen, he's got the play sheet, got it up over his mouth, and he goes, hey, Evan Hull, I know you haven't played all year. I know you're our 3rd string running back. I know that you have 1 reception in your career for 6 yards, but I want you to go in for Jonathan Taylor. And Evan Hull says, okay, coach. And he runs out there, and he, straps up his helmet, and he lines up beside Gardner Minshew, and Shane Steichen puts the play sheet back up over his mouth, and he's calling the play in to Gardner Minshew, and Minshew sitting there with his hands around his helmet. And he goes, okay, coach, I got the play. And he comes out and he calls the play. They break the huddle. They sprint up to the line, adrenaline pumping because the season's on the line. It's 4th down. If you get the 1st down, the game's over, and you're going to win, and you're going to win the division, and you're going to make the playoffs, and you're going to host a home playoff game for the first time in 10 years, and you're going to win the division for the first time in a decade, and everybody, juice is flowing. Anthony Richardson snaps the football, takes a 3-step drop, looks right to Michael Pittman Jr. The Houston Texans defense moves that way. He comes back left, flips out a little swing pass to Evan Hull, who then drops it. That's why he's going to be important this year. He's going to be the guy that Shane Steichen decides that with the season on the line should be in the game for Jonathan Taylor. That's who Evan Hull is going to be this year. So yes, we should be overly invested in how this 3rd string running back looks and plays this year. Oh my gosh. Those are the 5. Okay. So for the new listeners who just joined, this is Fun List Friday. Worst indie blogger boy headlines. Back up to the top. From Stampede Blue, Tyquan Lewis has become a reliable pass rusher. Not true. 4 sacks last year. over the course of a 6-year career, he's only registered 13 and a half sacks. Once again, from Stampede Blue, Colts offensive line revitalized into one of the NFL's best front fives. No, the Colts just got rid of the football a lot faster this year. That's why the sacks were down. From Colts Wire, the Colts, quote, saved a lot of money on the Michael Pittman contract extension. That's like, obviously, of course, like when you sign guys early, that's just the way it goes. Also, he was never going to demand as big a number as guys like Waddle, Jamar Chase, and Justin Jefferson. Okay, like it wasn't going to happen. Okay, then from Horseshoe Heroes, the Colts are predicted, let me back up. The headline is, quote, Colts predicted to have a breakout offensive star, and it's not Anthony Richardson, and they say that it's Jelani Woods, and that's not going to happen. And then finally from Horseshoe Heroes, oh my gosh. The headline is, why Colts fans should keep an eye on running back Evan Hull in 2024. And this list is only going to get longer. I may update it every Friday. That might be what I do. I might check, the Blogger Boy sites every day. And when I see stuff, I will add it to the list and I will update you guys every Friday. Because I think it's funny. I think it's ridiculous, right? Like I partially understand it because when you reach the summer months and the off season of whatever sport you're covering, like you're looking for content. You're looking for ways to get people to see what you're going to say. But like, you don't have to be this desperate about it. Like, just be honest. Just be honest. That's all I'm asking for. Don't be ridiculous and say things like Evan Hull's going to be important to the Colts in 2024. The third string running back. Someone who is going to be important over these next few weeks is Luka Doncic of the Dallas Mavericks. He was an absolute assassin, killer last night. He was everything that we expect and want for superstars to be in this day and age. When we come back here in about 4 minutes, I'm going to tell you why he was so great and just highlight how awesome he was last night. Because if you missed it, you missed an absolute show. We're going to talk about that when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Over the river and through the woods to grandmother's house to see a coaster that's new for the entire crew, and they call it Good Gravy.
Good Gravy, the new family roller coaster at Holiday World and Splash and Safari. Twist and turn past a gigantic rolling pin, milk bottle, and more in a race to save Thanksgiving dinner. First forwards, then backwards. It's fun with a little gravy on top. Get tickets at holidayworld.com.
Free soft drinks, free parking, free sunscreen.
Saving money on your landscaping project. Now at Menards. We're your destination for concrete landscaping blocks. We have the largest in-stock selection ready to take home today. Plus, you can get free estimates fast using our landscape design program in-store or on Menards.com. Save big on landscaping products when you shop at Menards. Visit Menards.com to view the weekly flyer and check out all the great deals happening this week.
Save big money at Menards.
If you need bold banners to boost your business, but you're on a budget, think Staples. Posters, flyers, signs, and menus for less? Think Staples. Staples can print anything you need to move your business forward. Now at Staples, save $50 on your print purchase of $150 or more. Same-day service available on hundreds of items if you order by noon. And all backed by Staples' Print Perfect guarantee. So it's done right or it's printed again free. Staples, your local print and marketing expert. N61, visit staples.com/print for details.
Today, we're on a quest for the ever-elusive local business. However, our search is difficult as big-name national companies overshadow their smaller competitors. If only these local businesses knew about Cumulus Boost. Cumulus Boost can increase their online presence in ways that go beyond basic SEO. Aha, a mom and pop shop victory. Get found by more customers with Cumulus Boost at cumulusboost.com. That's CUMULUS boost.com.
Eating, working, living pain-free. These are a few of the things many of us take for granted. Yet for many United States military veterans, finding and affording oral health care is a challenge. Dental Lifeline Network is looking for dentists who can change this. Will you volunteer to help people like Richard, a U.S. naval veteran who suffered severe PTSD after his service? He was left homeless for a period of time, and his oral and overall health are suffering. Because of congressional limitations, the VA can't provide the dental help he needs. Through our Will You See One Vet program, we focus on helping U.S. military veterans like Richard. Now we are seeking more general dentists and specialists to donate treatment to at least one veteran with special needs. When you volunteer with DLN's program to see one vet, we handle the details so you can focus on the care. If you are a dentist or know a dentist, please share this message and help us make a difference in the life of a veteran in need. Visit willyouseeonevet.org to learn more. That's willyouseeonevet.org.
People join Walk MS to raise awareness and funds that change the world for everyone affected by multiple sclerosis. MS attacks the brain and spinal cord. It's the most common neurological disease leading to disability in young adults. Walk MS brings communities together, creating teams with friends, loved ones, and coworkers to rally around those we care about and end MS forever. Join us. Together we are stronger. Walk MS fundraising accelerates research breakthroughs and life-changing breakthroughs. It will take all of our passion, determination, and fundraising to end MS forever. Together, we can change the world for people with MS. Join us. Register today, start a team, and raise funds at walkms.org.
It's the Dan Dockage Show.
Well, you didn't want to pay the players.
I did want to play. I did want to play the player. You said I did. I did.
For the longest time, you would be like, "Oh, well, didn't they go to Italy every 4 years? That's basically paying."
Shut up.
That's exactly what you'd say. You're like, "Oh, they went to Greece."
I got the tapes.
Dan Dockage, weekdays from noon to 3. This is Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 99.5 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app. Unadulterated sports talk with unfiltered takes. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on in the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket as we continue just a fantastic Friday. It's just a great day. Luka Doncic is an absolute assassin. Stampede Blue, Colts Wire, Horseshoe Heroes, those sides, they're out in full force. Always enjoy making fun of those guys. The Dan Dockage Show today from noon to 3 is going to be great. Lynn Dunn coming on at like 2:15, so that'll be good. And hopefully another hoops guy. I need these people to respond to me. Am I losing my touch? I might be. That's not true. That's not happening. But Luka Doncic, an absolute assassin. It was on full display last night. I tried to warn you guys. Okay, if you listened to the show yesterday, you know that I warned you. Luka Doncic. He's incredible. Okay, showed last night why he's the second best player in the world. That's right. Despite what you're hearing from ESPN and these other places, he's not better than Nikola Jokic. Okay, like one game, like we can't overreact to it, and that's what people are doing right now. He's, one of the two best players in the world. Second behind Jokic. And with that being said, like in any big game, how do you take anyone that's not named Luka Doncic? Okay, this is the second time that we've seen him snatch a team's soul on the road to eliminate them from the playoffs. Okay, 2 years ago, Game 7 on the road against the Phoenix Suns with an opportunity to make the Western Conference Finals on the line. Okay, and that Phoenix Suns team expected to make the finals again. That was their expectation. That was Chris Paul, Devin Booker, and DeAndre Ayton the year after they lost to the Milwaukee Bucks. And Luka comes out and scores 35 points, pulls down 10 rebounds, and shoots 63% from the floor and 55% from three. I mean, he came out in the first quarter of that game 2 years ago, scored 12 points, followed it up with 15 in the second. You looked up, he had 27 points at the end of the first half, and the Mavericks were up by like 40. Okay, he was dominant in that game 2 years ago, just like he was last night. He came out against the Timberwolves last night in Game 5. And he outscored him in the first quarter. Luka Doncic scored 20 points in the first quarter, and the Timberwolves only scored 19. Okay, he came out early, and he set the tone in the first quarter. And that tone was, bye-bye, Minnesota. I'm way better than all of y'all. You guys can't beat us because I'm playing tonight. Okay, and Luka went on to finish the game with 36 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists on 64% shooting from the floor and 60% shooting from three. And it was incredible, just the way he came out and didn't allow Minnesota to breathe. He came out and he hit them with just a barrage of shots. Early, he comes out, he hits his first shot. It's a little floater. comes down, pulls up from 3, hits a 30-footer, comes down the following possession and hits another 30-footer. 3 possessions, 8 points, and the Mavs were off and running. Okay, and throughout the playoffs, throughout the season as a whole, people have compared Anthony Edwards to Michael Jordan. And look, it's not an absurd comparison, right? They're very similar. They're both like 6'6". They both have long arms. They're both highly explosive. They're both very charismatic, right? Like they're very similar in a lot of ways. But the killer instinct was on full display from Luka Doncic last night. And when you watch the game, I don't know how it doesn't remind you of Michael Jordan. Okay, like the killer instinct to stomp out any sort of life that the Timberwolves had before the game even got going yesterday. Like that's what Luka had. Right? And I'm 24. I didn't see Jordan live. Okay, I've gone back. I've watched a lot of his classic games, but when people talk about Michael Jordan, whether you like Michael Jordan, you think he's the greatest player ever, whether you think LeBron's better, whatever, like no matter who you are, when you discuss Michael Jordan, the thing that people preach about him is this killer instinct to step out onto the floor and just snatch teams' souls away. Like that's what he's really most well known for, besides the 2 3-peats and the 6 rings, right? Michael Jordan's will to win, the ability to just grab a game and take it. Like that is a common talking point when Michael Jordan's legacy is brought up. Dare I say that's the main talking point that people have. And what Luka did last night was that. How does that not remind you of what Michael Jordan used to do to teams in the 90s? Okay? Like Michael Jordan would go out in the fourth quarter and he would just take games away from people. He would snatch them away. Like this is mine. It's not yours. Go home. And that's what Luka did last night. He just did it from the jump. He came out, he claimed the game as his, and they put the Timberwolves away early. Comes out, scores 20 points in the first quarter. He rests a decent amount in the second quarter. And when he was out of the game and the shots weren't falling quite at the same rate, Kyrie Irving steps up. And he didn't miss a shot in the second quarter. 5 of 5, finished the second quarter he scored 14 points in the second quarter. Right? Like Luka's going to steal the headlines, as he should. Western Conference Finals MVP, second best player in the world. ESPN and these other places are going to try to tell you differently, but I'm telling you right now, Jokic is better than Luka. That's just the way that it is. But Kyrie was great, not only in the series, but also in the game last night. He finished with 36 points, just as many as Luka did, on 52% shooting from the floor and 40% from 3. That means that Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, Kyrie Irving, the two guys who couldn't coexist because they both have to have the ball and all those different types of things that were said. Those two guys combined to score 72 points. 72 points on 57% shooting from the floor. That has to be one of the best, elimination Western Conference Finals games we've ever seen from a duo. 72 points, 57% shooting from the floor. I don't care who you are. You aren't beating anybody when you allow two players to combine for that point total on that shooting efficiency. Okay, you could be the 90s Bulls. You could be the Showtime Lakers. You could be one of the great Celtic teams from the 80s. Pick whatever team you want. You're not beating the Mavericks or anybody when their two best players combine to score 72 points on 57% shooting from the floor. It's not going to happen. And I think last night fully displayed what this series was about. Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving were the two best players on the floor last night. Luka Doncic was the best player in the series. Kyrie Irving was the second best player in the series. And that series, Mavs and Timberwolves, feels similar to Boston and Indiana in that regard as well. The reason why the Pacers lost to the Celtics, ultimately, the reason why they were swept was because Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown were the two best players in the series. Every game. Okay, the two best players in game 1, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. Two best players in game 2, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. And that continues in games 3 and 4. That's why they swept. And when we look at this Dallas and Minnesota series, the reason why the Timberwolves got a game was because in game 4, Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards outplayed Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving in game 4. Like Luka and Kyrie, they didn't shoot the ball well. They both combined to shoot under 35% from the floor. Like you aren't going to beat anybody when your two best players do that, and they only lost by 5. So, the lesson that I think we can pull away from these or at least from these conference finals series are two things: stars win in the conference finals, and experience wins in the conference finals. Okay, we both saw it, or we saw it, in both of these conference finals this year. The Mavs had the two best players in the series. They had been there before, right? Kyrie Irving has won an NBA title, played a huge role on that Cavs team when they came back from down 3-1 in the NBA Finals against the Golden State Warriors. Luka played in the Western Conference Finals 2 years ago. Okay, like their two best players had been there before, and they were able to lead the way, and they won. And the Celtics, similar. They had two superstars that had been there before. 6 Eastern Conference Finals appearances in the last 8 years, with an NBA Finals appearance in there as well. And they won the series in large part because they had the two best players and because of the experience. And it should be a great NBA Finals, right? We're going to have this debate of, do you pick the better team to win? Because when you look across the roster, up and down, top to bottom, like the Celtics have the better roster. I will concede that. But the Mavericks have the best player in the series, and that is Luka Doncic. So do you take the better player? Do you take the better team? How do you go about it? I don't know. We'll kind of see how people go about it. But in honor of Luka making the NBA Finals, I wanted to take a moment to recognize the other chubby white athletes that were great at whatever their sport is. And so I don't have all of them on here. These are just the first ones that come to mind. Otter Creek in the YouTube chat. If you want to send me suggestions, feel free to tweet at me at _ Jonathan Smith, or you can go over to YouTube, search for Indie Sports Ticket. You can join the live stream and you can comment them in the chat there. Like I said, Otter Creek has thrown out a few that I didn't mention earlier. Phil Mickelson, Colin Montgomery, those kind of guys. So if you have any recommendations, feel free to tweet at me or to head on over to YouTube and give me some recommendations. Or once again, you can tweet at me at _ Jonathan Smith. So Jokic and Luka both had to be on here. Who thought that we'd ever see the day where two chubby white guys are the two best basketball players in the world? Okay, Jokic, 6'11", 284. I know he loves horses, but I don't think there's a horse in the world that could run with him on their back. Luka, 6'7". He's listed at 230. I don't think that's right. Okay, guys who drink beer after games, like Luka, I don't know if you saw that clip. He's in the hallway cracking a cold one with his dad, talking about the game, and the assistant GM for the Mavs walks by and just plucks it out of his hands and he just keeps it moving. So there's no way Luka Doncic only weighs 230 pounds. No way. It's got to be more than that. Minnesota Timberwolves Kevin Love is also on this list, a guy who I believe had MVP votes during his time in Minnesota. Back to the basket, bruiser, 6'8", 251, coming out of UCLA. Still is thick now. Okay, like gives me real old guy at the Rec vibes with the gray beard and the belly, right? And then we move into a real big in here. Bryant Reeves, also known as Big Country, 7 feet tall, 275 pounds, giving Shaquille O'Neal buckets back in the day. He had to make the list, right? I mean, just an inspiration to chubby white guys everywhere. Mehmet Okur, he's from Turkey, had a decent career in the NBA, played for like 7, 8, maybe 9 years. He had a nice little cup of coffee or two in the NBA. Then we move into golf, as I said. Phil Mickelson, he's a little pudgy. John Daly, though. Can't not mention John Daly. 5'11", 215 pounds. That's a dude right there. I believe he's won one major. I think that's it. That might be wrong. Got to freshen up on my John Daly history, apparently. So John Daly, he is the epitome of this list. Okay, I would love to walk 18 holes with John Daly. I don't want to say a word to him. I just want to see how his stamina lasts trying to walk 18 holes. Golly. Next on the list, there are a lot of older baseball players that you could put on here. So just to encapsulate all of them, my next players on this list is just every Major League Baseball player from its inception to April 15th of 1947, which is when the league integrated. So there's all those guys. There's your Babe Ruths and all those absolute legends from way back in the day. Staying in the world of baseball, John Kruk has to be on this list. 5'10", 200 pounds, played first base for the Phillies, has the famous quote where he's out on a date with someone and with a lady, and the lady's like, oh, like, he did something. She's like, aren't you an athlete? And he goes, I'm not an athlete. I'm a baseball player, which when he played first base, that is, yeah, like that's pretty accurate. Next, I put Travis Kelce on here because of the photo of him and Taylor Swift where he's shirtless and he's got love handles that an elephant can't wrap their trunk around. So had to put Travis Kelce on the list at 6'5", 250. And then the last guy here, rest in peace to this guy, Jared Lorenzen, also known as the Hefty Lefty, played for 2 years in the NFL, played quarterback for the New York Giants at 6'4", 285 pounds, coming out of the University of Kentucky. The Hefty Lefty, man, that was a big dude. He died of a heart attack, I think a couple years ago, not too incredibly long ago. So that's the list of best chubby white athletes of all time. Like I said, feel free to tweet at me at Twitter at __ Jonathan Smith if you have any sort of recommendation on that. On top of that as well, you can also join the YouTube chat. Just search for Indy Sports Ticket on YouTube, and the live stream should pop up. So there's a list one more time. Jokic at 6'11", 284 pounds. Luka Doncic, 6'7", 230 pounds. This is, once again, the best chubby white athletes of all time. Minnesota Timberwolves, Kevin Love at 6'8", 251. Bryant Reeves, a.k.a. Big Country, at 7 feet tall, 275 pounds. Mehmet Okur at 6'11", 249. John Daly at 5'11", 215. Every Major League Baseball player from its inception to April 15th, 1947. John Kruk at 5'10", 200. Travis Kelce, 6'5", 250. That one's debatable. If you want to take him off the list, fine. Then, of course, Jared Lorenzen, the Hefty Lefty at 6'4", 285 pounds, slinging the rock on the gridiron for the New York Giants for a couple seasons. In 4 minutes, I'm going to talk about the NBA, this 2020s decade, how interesting it is. We're going to, I believe, wrap up the show. I think this is the last segment of the week, which really sucks. And if I have extra time, I'll run through that worst indie blogger boys articles once again. That's all coming up here in about 4 minutes.
McDonald's presents Burger Reviews by Hamburglar. Today's review, the best ever Big Mac burger. Take it away, Hamburglar. Rubble, rubble. He said, there's more special sauce in every bite. Rubble, rubble. He said, rubble, rubble. Rubble, rubble. Rubble, rubble indeed, my friend.
Now buy one Big Mac or double cheeseburger and get another for $1. Price of participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer. Valid for product of equal or lesser value. Available at most restaurants in this area. Comparison of McDonald's classic burgers to prior burgers.
Okay, I'm ready to record my jewelry store's new radio spot. I got a great script that really goes after Diamonds Direct and how they're nothing special and how we can match their price. Great stuff.
Oh, great. We have this new technology that bleeps out any false claims, so it saves us time with editing. So you can start anytime.
Okay, here goes. When you visit our jewelry store, we'll guarantee direct. Our diamonds come straight. We have cutters. And, hey, what the?
The hard truth is that other jewelry stores simply can't do what Diamonds Direct can. Diamonds Direct has special relationship with De Beers, international connections, and virtually unlimited buying power. The result is true direct importer pricing, exceptional quality, and up to 30 times the diamond selection you find at other stores.
I can't believe this thing won't let me say.
Diamonds Direct. Your love, our passion. Get more truth at diamondsdirect.com. Official jeweler of the Indianapolis Colts.
Hey, it's Dan Dockich here. You know, this is the 14th annual Tom Dockich Memorial Golf Outing, sponsored by Horseshoe Racing and Casino. Here's the deal. Every dollar goes to kids. That's right. Every dollar goes to Dockich Cycles for the City. We're going to have 36 foursomes. We're going to have a blast. Great food, fantastic prizes, unbelievable camaraderie, all for a great cause. Go to dandockich.com and sign your team up today.
Eating, working, living pain-free. These are a few of the things many of us take for granted. Yet for many United States military veterans, finding and affording oral health care is a challenge. Dental Lifeline Network is looking for dentists who can change this. Will you volunteer to help people like Richard, a U.S. naval veteran who suffered severe PTSD after his service? He was left homeless for a period of time, and his oral and overall health are suffering. Because of congressional limitations, the VA can't provide the dental help he needs. Through our Will You See One Vet program, we focus on helping U.S. military veterans like Richard. Now we are seeking more general dentists and specialists to donate treatment to at least one veteran with special needs. When you volunteer with DLN's program to see one vet, we handle the details so you can focus on the care. If you are a dentist or know a dentist, please share this message and help us make a difference in the life of a veteran in need. Visit willyouseeonevet.org to learn more. That's willyouseeonevet.org.
As an organ donor, your story doesn't have to end. The good in you can live on. In fact, you could save up to 8 lives with your gifts. Your heart could keep beating. Your kidneys could keep filtering. And your intestines could keep on digesting for others. And that's not all. You can improve the lives of 50 more people as an eye and tissue donor, restoring sight and health. And you're not just helping out the person receiving the transplant. You're touching whole families with your life-saving gift. Register in minutes. Just go to organdonor.gov. You'll be happy you did. And just maybe, someone else will be happy too. Sign up today. Go to organdonor.gov. It saves lives. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
More winners, more often. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket? Thanks for tuning in. No matter how you're tuning in, maybe you're listening on that Indy Sports Ticket app. Maybe you're watching the live stream on Twitter. Follow us at Ticket 1430 to be able to watch that. Maybe you're watching on YouTube, Indy's Sports Ticket on there as well if you want to go subscribe and tune into the stream. And, last segment of the week, last segment for a while until there's like a big sporting event again, because the NBA finals don't start until Thursday. The NBA, why'd you have to do this to us, man? It's fine. I'll be okay. I'll find something to do, I guess, with no hoops on for the meanwhile. And, Luka was awesome last night, and it's got me thinking about the 2020s era. Right, because the decades of the NBA are defined by players. The 80s, that was the Magic and Bird decade. The 90s, that was the Michael Jordan decade. The 2000s, that was the Duncan and Kobe decade. The 2010s, that was the LeBron James and Steph Curry decade. And this era is really different. There's one glaring difference between everything that I just mentioned, really every decade of NBA history ever, and the way this one's going. If Luka Doncic wins a title this year, which is very much on the table, if Jokic wins another ring before 2030, if Giannis grabs another one before 2030, if Wemby wins a title before 2030, this will be and could be the first decade defined by international players. If Victor Wembanyama, look, yes, the Spurs were bad this year, not because of Wemby. Okay. It's okay. They weren't. They were bad because the rest of that roster was terrible. Okay. And so it's going to be interesting, right? For the first time in the history of the NBA, the league is dominated by these international dudes and not these Americans. And I like it. International basketball players that just play a more team-oriented style of basketball. They aren't prima donnas. The key to winning in any sport is sacrifice. Can you get better players on your team to accept their role, even if they don't like what their role is? That's how you win at every level, from elementary school to the middle school to high school to college to definitely the pros, because there's a list of a lot of players in the NBA where if you just gave them the ball, they could average 20 plus points a night. There's the dudes in the NBA are uber talented. Okay. And when we just look at the cultures of basketball overseas and basketballs here in America, they're polar opposites. And I think it's why we're seeing these international players come in and have success, because they understand that as individual as individualistic as basketball is, it's still very much a team game, right? Like you need 4 other dudes on the court with you to have success. And that's something that these international players understand that American players just seem not to. And there are people who are going to overreact to last night's game and this Mavericks run. Okay, like those people are going to crown Luka as the best player on the planet. It's already happened, right? Like on Get Up this morning on ESPN, that's what they said. On whatever the morning show is on this radio station done by CBS Radio, like they had the topic. Jason Tempf from The Volume, he did that topic on his podcast last night, and the list is going to continue to grow of people who talk about Luka as the best player in the world. And I'm just here to tell you, he's not. We tend to say that the best player in the world is whoever's playing the latest, and it's usually the guy who wins the Finals MVP. But at this time last year, it was all about Jokic. I'm here to tell you, Jokic he didn't get worse. I can tell you that much, all right? He ran into a Minnesota team that was just a tough matchup and they lost, and then Minnesota ran into a Dallas team that was a tough matchup and they lost. And I think that it's really hard in the moment to say who the best player in the world is because we very much get caught up in whatever's happening, whoever's, holding the shiniest trophy, right? But when we look back and see the full picture, I think we're actually able to decide who the best player on the planet was. And because like right now, Luka didn't even win Finals MVP and people are crowning him, right? Like when if he wins Finals MVP and if they win the NBA Finals, then like everybody's going to be saying that he's the best player in the world. That's just kind of the way that it goes. But like we're in the middle of this transition where, like international players have been a part of the league for a long time, going back to guys like Tony Kukoc, right? Like that's the first guy that I think of, but not like this. Like Tony Kukoc was never the best player on a team that won a title, right? Like they were mainly role players. They coming off the bench, they'd shoot the ball, a lot of good passing bigs, coming in from overseas, guys like Sabonis and all that kind of stuff. But like they were mainly role players. But now they've emerged into these like superstars, and they're incredibly fun to watch. I'm telling you right now, the 2020 era, the 2020 decade of the NBA is going to be defined by these international guys. Luka, Jokic, Wemby, Giannis. Like those are the guys. And when we look back in 10 years, we're going to be like, yeah, that decade was about those 4 dudes that were not from America. And I think that that's going to continue to be a thing that we talk about. To close out the show, I got to close it out with Fun List Friday. So the second edition of it, okay, I did one earlier with, the best white chubby athletes of all time. That list is just incredibly fun. And if you missed it, the stream will be back up on YouTube later. May post the segment by itself as well. We'll see. But I have to close with, the Colts, because it's never a bad idea to talk about the Colts. And so Fun List Friday, the worst indie blogger boy headlines. If you listen to the Dan Dockett Show every day from noon to 3, which is coming up here in about 15 minutes or so, and that the local media around here isn't the best. So I went to some of these blogger boy websites last night and decided to look at them myself. And I've compiled a list of 5 absolutely horrendous blogger boy headlines. And the list will continue to grow throughout the season. I think I've decided that I may just update the list every Friday. That might be what I do. So to kick off the list from Stampede Blue, the headline is Tyquan Lewis has become a reliable pass rusher. Tyquan Lewis, the guy who had 4 sacks last year, the guy who has played in the league for 6 years and has only registered 13 and a half sacks. That's the guy who's become a reliable pass rusher. The guy that Leatu Latu was drafted to probably cut his reps. That's the thing, man. Like Dan and I can't remember if it was yesterday, 2 days ago. At some point this week, somebody wrote that Kwity Paye had become a good pass rusher. And it's like, why would the Colts draft Leatu Latu if Kwity Paye and Tyquan Lewis were both good pass rushers? They wouldn't have. They wouldn't have. Like, this is just ridiculous. Whatever. Also from Stampede Blue, our second headline here for Fun List Friday, the worst indie blogger boy headlines. From Stampede Blue, Colts offensive line revitalized into one of the NFL's best front fives. Ay. Oh my gosh. Their defense is based on the idea that the Colts allowed the third fewest sacks in the NFL last year because good offensive line play is entirely dictated by, whether or not you allow sacks. There's no such thing as run blocking. That's not a thing. But anyway, looking at their idea that because the Colts gave up, the third fewest sacks in the NFL last year, that makes them a top 5 offensive line. No, it's just wrong because the Colts gave up less sacks last year because Gardner Minshew got rid of the football quickly. Okay, he got rid of the ball on average in 2.73 seconds. When you're getting rid of the ball in less than 3 seconds, the offensive line doesn't have to be great. They don't. In fact, I don't know if I want my quarterback getting rid of the ball that fast. Because if I'm getting rid of the ball that quickly, that means that my offensive line can't block very well. Okay, the reason why the sack numbers went down last year was because of Steichen's play calling, not because all of a sudden these Colts offensive linemen got incredibly better. Okay, the Colts did a good job of running and calling plays that allowed guys to get open quickly so that this older, not as good offensive line wasn't heavily relied upon. Okay, so Stampede Blue, just get out of here with all that, man. From Colts Wire, the article is, Colts, quote, saved a lot, end quote, on Michael Pittman contract extension. And this is just common sense. Like, we didn't need a whole article on this. Okay, like the last elite receiver that gets paid resets the market. That's how it works at every position in the NFL. So when you pay a guy earlier, you tend to save a little bit of money on it. But here's the thing. Michael Pittman Jr. was never going to get or even be able to demand the type of money that Jalen Waddle got yesterday. He was never going to be able to sniff what Jamar Chase is going to get paid. Okay, he was never going to sniff what Justin Jefferson is going to get paid. So this is just a dumb point. Like, this is just obvious. Like, we don't need, 300 words on this. We don't need 5 words on this, honestly. Like, this is just common sense. Like, Michael Pittman Jr. was never going to challenge for those top of the line top contracts anyway. He was going to end up being a $20 million a year type of wide receiver because that's what he is and that's what he's worth. And by the time that all of these contracts reset the market, his contract is going to be about where it should be, around the 20th. He's going to end up being around the 20th highest paid receiver in the NFL, which is where he should be because he's, a 20-ish. He's like around the 20th best receiver in the NFL. That's where he should be. Next, from Horseshoe Heroes, these last two, man, they're rich. They're so rich. It's incredible. From Horseshoe Heroes, the article is, Colts predicted to have a breakout offensive star, and it's not Anthony Richardson. In the article, it claims that Jelani Woods is going to be a breakout player at tight end this season. And, let's just ignore the fact that he tore his hamstring last year. Let's just ignore how important that muscle is for playing and doing anything, especially playing a sport as physical as football. Yeah, like that doesn't sound like the easiest injury to come back from. And also, like, his rookie year wasn't that outstanding. Like, it wasn't great. Like, it was fine. Like, he played 15 games his rookie season, only started 2 of them, only caught 25 balls, and he was only targeted 40 times. So he was targeted less than 3 times a game when he played. Colts also have a stable full of tight ends. Okay, like they got a lot of them, and several of them are good players. Like, he's going to split reps at that tight end position. Kyle Granson was the fourth leading receiver for the Colts this previous season. Okay, like, he's gonna, like, based off of last year, he's gonna be the guy who gets the primary targets at tight end for the Colts. Okay, it's like, he's like, if you're splitting reps, you're not going to be a breakout player. It's not going to happen. Okay, like, part of breaking out is having more opportunity. Like, that significantly helps, right? The idea of being a breakout player. So, yeah, I don't want to hear that. Finally, from Horseshoe Heroes, this one's, oh man, this is my favorite one. From Horseshoe Heroes again. The article is, why Colts fans should keep an eye on running back Evan Hull in 2024. Yes, please explain to me, educate me on why I should be tuned in to Colts' third string running back Evan Hull and how he performs this year. Please tell me why the player that has one career carry for 1 yard. Please tell me why that's the guy that I should be paying attention to. Come on now. He has 2 career touches. That's the article. And it's just, what? He's the 3rd string running back. Please, Horseshoe Heroes, call in. I don't take callers. I don't have time to take a caller. But Monday, call in. Tell me why I should pay attention to Evan Hull. Because what you wrote didn't make any sense. Okay? Like, sure, he might get 5 carries this year in garbage time. And I'm sure those are going to be really important for the Colts. Come on now. Just ridiculous blogs, man. So funny. As the year goes on, I'm going to add to this list. Hopefully, every Friday, I'm able to add. I probably will be able to add at least an article or 2 to this list. But yeah, Evan Hull, watch out, people. Oh my gosh, it's just, oh, that's hilarious. One career carry for 1 yard and 1 career reception for 6 yards. That's the guy we should be paying attention to. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah, those are hilarious. Monday, I don't know what I'm going to talk about, but I promise it'll be good. It'll at least be entertaining. I may just do that. That may be my thing. I may just talk about the absurd articles that pop up from time to time from these Indianapolis people before I go and pass the mic to the great Dan Doncic. First, thank you for listening to the show. Go over to Twitter @__ Jonathan Smith. I tweeted something out here, and basically Otter Creek sent me these Luka Doncic pajamas. If the tweet that I just sent out gets 500 likes, I will wear the pajamas for a week on the show if the Mavericks also win the finals. So those are the rules of the trade. They're pretty obnoxious, so feel free to go over there and check those out. I'll be back on Monday. Cannot wait for the show. Once again, no idea what I'm talking about, but I promise it's going to be entertaining. Thank you for tuning in to The Real Jonathan Smith Show. Passing the mic to Dan Doncic here in about 4 minutes.
Race into Garrett's Smokehouse Barbecue to get your pulled pork, beef brisket, and smoked wings. Before you head to the track, make sure to make a pit stop at Garrett's Smokehouse.